Maya called in sick to work, something she'd never done before. She couldn't imagine sitting through patient consultations while her entire history was being systematically deleted in real time. Instead, she spent the day documenting everything, taking screenshots, saving links, building a comprehensive record of her family's revisionist project. The scope of it was breathtaking. Going back through months of social media posts, she found evidence of a coordinated effort that must have taken weeks to execute. Photos had been re-edited, videos had been professionally altered, even casual mentions of both kids in older posts had been changed to "our son" or simply "David." Her mother's book club photos from last Christmas had been cropped to remove Maya from the background. Her father's golf tournament pictures had been adjusted to eliminate her presence at the family celebration dinner afterward. Even mundane posts about grocery shopping or weekend activities had been scrubbed of any reference to a daughter. Any indication that the Chen family had ever been anything other than a tight-knit trio. The technical expertise required suggested they'd hired professionals. This wasn't amateur-hour photo editing. The color correction was perfect, the lighting seamlessly matched, the audio manipulation on David's speech was Hollywood-quality work. Maya found herself wondering how much money her father had spent on erasing her, how many hours of professional time had been devoted to making her disappearance look natural and inevitable. Around noon, her doorbell rang. Maya peered through the peephole to see Mrs. Patterson, her elderly neighbor from across the hall, holding a casserole dish. "Maya, dear, I brought you some soup," Mrs. Patterson said when Maya opened the door. "You looked so pale yesterday morning, and I thought you might be coming down with something." The simple kindness nearly broke Maya's composure. Mrs. Patterson was 83, lived alone with her ancient tabby cat, and somehow always knew when her neighbors needed a little extra care. She'd been bringing Maya occasional meals ever since Maya had helped her navigate her Medicare paperwork 6 months ago. "That's so thoughtful, Mrs. Patterson. Thank you. Are you feeling better today? You still look a bit peaked." Maya managed a weak smile. "Just a rough week. Family stuff." Mrs. Patterson's expression softened with understanding. "Family can be the greatest blessing and the greatest heartache, can't it? Would you like some company? I was just about to make tea." For a moment, Maya was tempted to say yes, to let this kind woman's presence fill the silence of her apartment. But how could she explain what was happening without sounding delusional? How could she describe her family's systematic erasure without seeming paranoid or attention-seeking? "Maybe another time," Maya said. "I think I need to rest." "Of course, dear." But Maya, Mrs. Patterson reached out and squeezed Maya's hand. "Whatever you're dealing with, remember that you matter. You've been such a light in this building, always checking on people, always ready to help. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise." After Mrs. Patterson left, Maya sat in her kitchen eating the homemade soup and crying. The elderly woman's words echoed Dr. Martinez's from the day before, both of them seeming to intuit that Maya's worth was under attack, even without knowing the details. But their kindness, while healing, couldn't erase the growing evidence of her family's betrayal. Maya's phone continued to buzz throughout the afternoon with notifications from Jessica and other friends who were discovering new examples of the erasure. Emma had found Maya's father's LinkedIn profile, where his bio described him as a devoted father to his son David, with no mention of a daughter. Maya's former high school guidance counselor had forwarded an alumni newsletter featuring an article about successful graduates. David was mentioned as Dr. Chen's son, with no reference to Maya, despite her academic achievements. The most devastating discovery came late in the afternoon, when Maya decided to search for traces of herself on her extended family's social media. Her grandmother's Facebook page, maintained by Maya's aunt in Taiwan, had been systematically scrubbed as well. Photos from Maya's childhood visits, her college graduation, even casual family gatherings had all been edited to remove her presence. But it was her aunt's comment on one of the edited photos that made Maya's heart stop. So glad Uncle Richard finally got rid of those pictures with the troublemaker in them. Much better this way. Shows the real family. The real family? As if Maya had been an imposter all along, a temporary disruption in the Chen family's natural order, as if her 22 years of existence had been some kind of mistake that could now be corrected through careful editing and selective memory. Maya called Jessica back, her voice hollow with exhaustion. "They got to my extended family too. My aunt is in on it." "Maya, this is insane. This is coordinated harassment. You have to do something." "Like what? Call the police and report that my family edited me out of photos? Sue them for what exactly? Hurting my feelings?" There has to be something. This level of manipulation, this systematic erasure, it can't be legal. But Maya had spent hours researching, and the legal landscape was murky at best. Photo manipulation wasn't illegal when it involved family photos on personal social media accounts. Emotional abuse was hard to prove and harder to prosecute, especially when it involved adults who had chosen to cut contact. The photos were her father's property to edit as he saw fit. The social media accounts belonged to him and David, and Maya's consent wasn't required for her removal from their shared family history. That evening, Maya's phone rang with an unknown number. For a wild moment, she hoped it might be her mother, calling to explain or apologize, or somehow make sense of what was happening. Instead, she heard an unfamiliar voice. "Is this Maya Chen?" "Yes, who is this?" "My name is Dr. Rebecca Torres. I'm a psychologist specializing in family trauma. Jessica Martinez gave me your number. She's concerned about what you're going through." Maya's first instinct was to hang up. She didn't need therapy. She needed her family to stop erasing her from existence. But something in Dr. Torres's voice, professional but warm, concerned but not pitying, made her pause. "I'm not sure what Jessica told you, but I'm fine. Maya, what you're experiencing has a name. It's called damnatio memoriae, the practice of erasing someone from historical records as if they never existed. It's an ancient form of punishment that some modern families have adopted as a way of dealing with estrangement. You're not imagining this, you're not overreacting, and you're definitely not alone." For the first time in 3 days, Maya felt like someone understood the magnitude of what was happening to her. Other families do this? More than you might think. The digital age has made it easier to revise family history, to create narratives that exclude inconvenient truths or difficult relationships. What your family is doing to you is a form of psychological warfare, and it's devastating precisely because it attacks your fundamental sense of existence and belonging. Maya found herself crying again, but these tears felt different. Less desperate, more relieved. Someone believed her. Someone had a name for what was happening. The most devastating discovery came late in the afternoon, when Maya decided to search for traces of herself on her extended family's social media. Her grandmother's Facebook page, maintained by Maya's aunt in Taiwan, had been systematically scrubbed as well. Photos from Maya's childhood visits, her college graduation, even casual family gatherings had all been edited to remove her presence. But it was her aunt's comment on one of the edited photos that made Maya's heart stop. "So glad Uncle Richard finally got rid of those pictures with the troublemaker in them. Much better this way. Shows the real family." The real family. As if Maya had been an imposter all along, a temporary disruption in the Chen family's natural order. As if her 22 years of existence had been some kind of mistake that could now be corrected through careful editing and selective memory. Maya called Jessica back, her voice hollow with exhaustion. "They got to my extended family too. My aunt is in on it."
Maya, this is insane. This is coordinated harassment. You have to do something. Like what? Call the police and report that my family edited me out of photos? Sue them for what exactly? Hurting my feelings? There has to be something. This level of manipulation, this systematic erasure, it can't be legal. But Maya had spent hours researching, and the legal landscape was murky at best. Photo manipulation wasn't illegal when it involved family photos on personal social media accounts. Emotional abuse was hard to prove and harder to prosecute, especially when it involved adults who had chosen to cut contact. The photos were her father's property to edit as he saw fit. The social media accounts belonged to him and David, and Maya's consent wasn't required for her removal from their shared family history. That evening, Maya's phone rang with an unknown number. For a wild moment, she hoped it might be her mother, calling to explain or apologize or somehow make sense of what was happening. Instead, she heard an unfamiliar voice. "Is this Maya Chen?" "Yes, who is this?" "My name is Dr. Rebecca Torres. I'm a psychologist specializing in family trauma. Jessica Martinez gave me your number. She's concerned about what you're going through." Maya's first instinct was to hang up. She didn't need therapy, she needed her family to stop erasing her from existence. But something in Dr. Torres' voice, professional but warm, concerned but not pitying, made her pause. "I'm not sure what Jessica told you, but I'm fine. Maya, what you're experiencing has a name. It's called damnatio memoriae, the practice of erasing someone from historical records as if they never existed. It's an ancient form of punishment that some modern families have adopted as a way of dealing with estrangement. You're not imagining this, you're not overreacting, and you're definitely not alone." For the first time in 3 days, Maya felt like someone understood the magnitude of what was happening to her. Other families do this? More than you might think. The digital age has made it easier to revise family history, to create narratives that exclude inconvenient truths or difficult relationships. What your family is doing to you is a form of psychological warfare, and it's devastating precisely because it attacks your fundamental sense of existence and belonging.
She knew this photo. She had been there, standing right between her younger brother David and her mother, Linda. She remembered the moment, the struggle to get everyone positioned just right on the wooden dock, her father's impatience as he set up the camera timer, the way the late afternoon sun had painted everything golden. She remembered laughing at David's terrible joke about fish, the way her mother had smoothed Maya's hair just before the camera clicked. But in this version, the version now displayed for her father's 847 Facebook friends to see, Maya was gone, erased, photoshopped out so seamlessly that the composition looked natural, inevitable. David stood closer to their mother now, the gap where Maya had been filled with more lake and sky. The caption read, "Perfect family getaway, blessed with these two amazing people. #blessed, #family time, #perfect moments." Maya sank to the floor, her back against the refrigerator, glass crunching beneath her bare feet. She scrolled through more photos, each one a fresh wound. Christmas morning, 2018. She'd been on the left side of the couch, wearing the red sweater her grandmother had knitted. Gone. David's graduation from high school. She'd stood proud beside her parents in the school auditorium. Vanished. Her mother's birthday dinner last year at Giovanni's Italian restaurant. Maya had been the one who'd organized the whole thing, called in favors to get the private room, spent weeks planning the surprise. In the posted version, it looked like a cozy dinner for 3, her empty chair simply not there, the table reset for a smaller party. 43 photos, 43 memories that had been surgically altered to erase her existence. And each one garnered dozens of likes, comments full of heart emojis and responses like, "What a beautiful family," and "You're so lucky, Dr. Chen," and "Goals." Maya's phone rang, startling her from her paralysis. Jessica's name flashed on the screen. "Maya? Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. I debated whether to tell you, but I thought, how long? How long have these been up?" I don't know. I just saw them this morning when his post came up in my feed. The Lake Tahoe one was posted yesterday, but some of the others, they have older timestamps. Maya, what happened?
I mean, I know you and your family had issues, but this is psychotic, Maya finished. She pulled her knees up to her chest, making herself as small as possible. This is psychotic. Through the phone, she could hear Jessica moving around, probably getting ready for her job at the marketing firm downtown. Jessica had always been the practical one, the problem solver. Have you talked to your mom or David? Maya laughed, but it came out broken and sharp. I haven't talked to any of them in 2 years. Not since... She stopped herself. Even Jessica didn't know the whole story. Nobody did. The kitchen fell quiet, except for the hum of the old refrigerator and the distant sound of traffic outside her apartment. Maya stared at the screen, at her father's smiling face in his profile picture. Dr. Richard Chen, pillar of the community, respected oral surgeon, devoted family man. In the comments on his photos, colleagues praised his work-life balance, neighbors expressed envy of his close-knit family, patients thanked him for his gentle care. None of them knew about the late-night screaming matches that had rattled the windows of their suburban home. None of them knew about the impossible standards, the conditional love, the way her father's approval had always come with strings that grew tighter and more cutting with each passing year. None of them knew about the night Maya had finally had enough, the night she'd packed everything she could fit in 2 suitcases and left behind the only family she'd ever known. And apparently, none of them would ever know she had existed at all. Maya? Are you still there? I have to go to work, Maya said, though she made no move to get up from the floor. Her shift at the pediatric clinic didn't start for another hour, but she needed to end this conversation before Jessica started asking questions Maya wasn't ready to answer. This isn't okay, Jessica said firmly. This is harassment or something. Can't you report it?
Report what? That my father posted photos of his family? Maya touched the screen, zooming in on her mother's face in the Lake Tahoe photo. Linda looked happy, her smile genuine, her arm around David's shoulders. Had she known what Richard was planning to do with these photos? Had she approved of Maya's digital execution? After hanging up with Jessica, Maya sat in her kitchen for a long time, surrounded by broken ceramic and cooling coffee. Her reflection caught in the black screen of her phone. Thin face, dark circles under her eyes, black hair that needed a trim hanging limp around her shoulders. She looked like a ghost, she realized. Maybe that's all she'd ever been to them. Her upstairs neighbor's footsteps creaked across the ceiling, and somewhere down the hall, Mrs. Rodriguez was already playing her morning talk shows too loud. Normal sounds of normal people living their normal lives, unaware that Maya's entire history had been rewritten overnight, her existence scrubbed clean from the digital record of the Chen family's happiness. She stood up carefully, avoiding the worst of the broken mug, and walked to her bedroom. The cardboard box under her bed held the only physical photos she'd managed to take when she left home. Pictures from before the final break, when she'd still believed things could be fixed, when she'd still held hope that her father's love wasn't as conditional as it seemed. Her fingers traced the edges of a photo from her high school graduation, herself in cap and gown, flanked by proud parents, David making bunny ears behind her head. They'd look like a normal family then. They'd felt like one, too, for those few precious moments before the performance had to continue. Maya checked the time. She needed to shower, get dressed, pretend to be functional for her patients and their worried parents. Dr. Sarah Martinez, the clinic's director, had been patient with Maya's rough patches over the past year, but everyone had limits. Maya couldn't afford to lose this job, not when it was the only thing keeping her afloat in a city that seemed determined to swallow her whole. But as she stood in her tiny bathroom, waiting for the water to heat up, her phone buzzed again. Another notification. This time from David's Instagram account, which she followed from a fake profile she'd created months ago just to keep tabs on her baby brother. He'd posted the Lake Tahoe photo too, with his own caption, "Miss these times with mom and dad. Family is everything." The comments were already rolling in. David's college friends, high school classmates, even some family friends Maya recognized from her childhood. All of them celebrating the Chen family's beautiful bond, their obvious love for each other, their picture-perfect moments. Not one person seemed to notice that someone was missing. Not one person remembered that David Chen had once had a sister. Maya turned off the water and sank onto her bathroom floor,
the tile cold against her skin. The magnitude of her erasure was becoming clear. This wasn't just about photos. This was about rewriting history itself. Her father hadn't just cut her out of his life, he'd cut her out of existence entirely, as if she'd never been born, never grown up in that house, never shared 22 years of birthdays and holidays and ordinary Tuesday dinners with these people who had once called her daughter, sister, family. The cruelest part was how clean it looked, how natural. How easy it seemed to explain away 2 decades of a shared life, to crop out the inconvenient daughter who had dared to challenge the family narrative, who had refused to play her assigned role in Dr. Richard Chen's carefully constructed perfect world. But Maya was still here, still breathing, still carrying all those memories that exist now only in her head and in a cardboard box under her bed. She was the walking, talking proof that the Chen family's perfect story was built on a lie. The question that haunted her as she finally stood and turned the shower back on was simple and terrible. If your family erases you so completely that the world believes you never existed, do you still count as their daughter? Do you still count as anyone at all? The hot water ran over her shoulders, but Maya couldn't stop shivering. Outside her bathroom window, the city continued its morning routine, indifferent to the quiet devastation unfolding in apartment 4B, where a young woman was learning that love could be conditional, even in retrospect, that family could be edited, that a person's entire existence could be reduced to empty space and sky.
Maya had always been a creature of routine, though she hadn't realized how much she depended on structure until everything else in her life had fallen apart. Her alarm went off at 6:15 a.m. every weekday, followed by the same sequence. Shower, coffee, toast with peanut butter, check the weather, grab her worn leather messenger bag, and walked the 8 blocks to Sunshine Pediatric Clinic on Maple Street. The routine was armor against the chaos in her head, against the constant low-grade anxiety that hummed beneath her skin like electricity. But today, after the photo discovery, everything felt off-kilter. The coffee tasted bitter, the toast sat like cardboard in her mouth, and the October morning air seemed sharper against her cheeks as she hurried down the sidewalk, her footsteps echoing off the brick buildings that lined her route. Maya worked as a patient advocate at the clinic, a job that had found her rather than the other way around. After leaving home with nothing but her psychology degree and a bruised heart, she'd stumbled into the role almost by accident. Dr. Martinez had needed someone who could speak Mandarin and Spanish to help bridge communication gaps with families, someone who understood what it felt like to be caught between worlds. Maya had walked into the interview desperate and underprepared, but something in her eyes must have resonated with the older woman because she'd been hired on the spot. The work suited her in ways she hadn't expected. All day long, she sat with parents whose children were facing medical challenges, translating not just language, but fear, hope, confusion, and love. She helped 7-year-old Marcus explain to his mother why the shots didn't hurt as much when he counted in Spanish. She held Mrs. Kim's hand while the doctor explained her daughter's diabetes diagnosis, whispering reassurances in Korean that she'd picked up from other families. She made charts and coloring books more accessible for kids with different learning needs, staying late to laminate pictures and organize supplies. Her colleagues saw her as the quiet one who always remembered birthdays, who brought homemade cookies when someone was having a rough week, who somehow always knew the right thing to say to a crying parent. They didn't know that she practiced those conversations in her bathroom mirror, that her empathy came from an intimate understanding of what it felt like to be unseen, unheard, unwanted. Maya had learned early that love was something you earned through perfect behavior, exceptional grades, and an ability to anticipate needs before they were spoken. In the Chen household, she'd been the translator between her traditional grandparents and her American-born parents, the mediator during her parents' increasingly frequent fights, the responsible older sister who made sure David's homework was done and his soccer gear was clean. She'd been useful, necessary, indispensable, until, suddenly, she wasn't. The pediatric clinic felt like a safe space, a place where her particular skills were valued without strings attached. Dr. Martinez never questioned Maya's sometimes unconventional methods, like the time she'd taught a nonverbal autistic child to communicate his pain levels using a system of colored cards, or when she'd convinced the clinic to install dimmer lighting in the waiting room after noticing how many children with sensory processing issues struggled with the harsh fluorescence. But today, walking into the familiar blue and yellow lobby with its cheerful murals of cartoon animals, Maya felt like an imposter. How could she help other people navigate family trauma when she couldn't even figure out how to process her own digital erasure? How could she advocate for children's voices being heard when her own family had decided she never had one to begin with? "Morning, Maya," called out Rebecca, the receptionist, from behind her desk covered in photos of her 3 kids. "You okay? You look a little pale." Maya forced a smile and waved, but she caught her reflection in the glass door of Dr. Martinez's office as she passed. Rebecca was right. She looked translucent, insubstantial, like someone who might disappear if you blinked too hard. The irony wasn't lost on her. Her first appointment was with the Rodriguez family. 8-year-old Sophia had been diagnosed with juvenile arthritis, and her parents were struggling to understand the long-term implications. Maya had been working with them for 3 months, slowly building trust, helping them navigate the maze of medical terminology.
The maze of specialists and insurance requirements and medical terminology that seemed designed to overwhelm rather than inform. Mrs. Rodriguez was waiting in the small conference room, her hands wrapped around a cup of coffee from the vending machine, her eyes red-rimmed with the exhaustion that came from too many sleepless nights worrying about her daughter's future. "How is Sophia doing with the new medication?" Maya asked, settling into the chair across from her and pulling out her notes. "Better, I think. The swelling in her knees is down. But she's been asking questions I don't know how to answer." Mrs. Rodriguez's voice cracked slightly. "She wants to know if she'll be able to play soccer when she's older, if she'll be able to have children someday, if it will make her different from other kids." Maya felt a familiar tightness in her chest. Sophia's questions echoed her own childhood fears about being different, about not fitting into the narrow definition of acceptable that her father had constructed for their family. "What have you told her so far?" "That we'll figure it out together. That she's still the same Sophia, still our beautiful, smart, funny daughter. But I don't know if that's enough." Mrs. Rodriguez looked up at Maya with desperate eyes. "How do I help her understand that being different doesn't make her less valuable?" The question hit Maya like a physical blow. She stared down at her hands, at the small scar on her thumb from the time she'd helped David build a treehouse when he was 10 and she was 15. He'd been so proud of that treehouse, had made her promise to help him paint it the next weekend, but by the time Saturday came around, their father had decided the treehouse was an eyesore and had made them tear it down. David had cried for hours, and Maya had held him, promising they'd build an even better one someday when they had their own house. That promise felt hollow now, sitting in this room with another mother trying to protect her child from a world that might see her as less than whole. "I think," Maya said slowly, "the most important thing is to keep showing her that your love isn't conditional, that no matter what challenges she faces, no matter how her illness affects her life, she'll always be your daughter. She'll always belong in your family." Mrs. Rodriguez nodded, wiping her eyes. "Yes, exactly. She needs to know that nothing could ever change that." Maya continued the conversation on autopilot, discussing treatment options and support groups and adaptive equipment that might help Sophia stay active. But part of her mind was elsewhere, caught in the contradiction between the advice she was giving and the reality of her own experience. She believed in the words she was saying. Children deserved unconditional love. Families should be safe havens. Belonging should be a birthright rather than something that could be revoked. But believing in something and living it were two very different things. During her lunch break, she walked to Riverside Park, a small green space wedged between two apartment complexes where she often came to think. She sat on a bench facing the narrow creek that gave the park its name, watching the water flow over smooth stones. The October afternoon was warm enough that she could unzip her cardigan, and the sun on her face almost made her forget about the morning's discovery. Almost. Her phone buzzed with a text from her coworker, Amy. The Henderson family specifically requested you for their appointment tomorrow. Mrs. Henderson said you're the only one who really listens. Maya smiled despite herself. The Henderson family had been coming to the clinic for 6 months, ever since their 4-year-old son Jake had been diagnosed with a speech delay. The parents were young, overwhelmed, and dealing with judgment from extended family members who insisted Jake would grow out of it if they just stopped coddling him. Maya had spent hours with them, explaining child development, connecting them with resources, and most importantly, validating their instincts as parents who knew their child best. She thought about Jake's breakthrough last week when he'd finally said his first 3-word sentence, "I want mama." The joy on his parents' faces had been radiant, transformative. They'd cried and hugged him and called Maya over to witness this milestone that might seem small to outsiders, but was monumentally important to their family.
That's what families were supposed to do, Maya realized. Celebrate each other's victories, no matter how small. Support each other through challenges. See each other clearly and love what they saw. The Hendersons did that for Jake. The Rodriguez family was learning to do it for Sophia. Even in the face of diagnosis and difficulty and uncertainty, these families were choosing to hold each other closer. Her own family had made the opposite choice. Maya's phone buzzed again. This time, it was an Instagram notification. David had posted another photo from their family archive. This one was from Maya's college graduation, the day she'd earned her psychology degree from State University with a 3.8 GPA and highest honors. In the original, she'd been flanked by her parents and David, all of them squinting in the bright June sunlight outside the campus auditorium. Her father had surprised her by suggesting they go to dinner at her favorite restaurant afterward, a small gesture that had felt like validation after years of criticism. In David's posted version, the photo showed him and their parents celebrating something. The graduation cap and gown were gone, cropped out, along with Maya herself. The caption read, "Random family photo from a few years back. Love these people more than words can say." Maya stared at the image until her eyes burned. She wanted to comment, to say something that would pierce through this collaborative amnesia. But what would the point? David had made his choice. They all had. She closed the app and called Dr. Martinez instead. "Maya, is everything okay? You sound upset." "Dr. Martinez, I need to ask you something." Maya's voice was steadier than she felt. "When you hired me, you said you could tell I understood what it was like to be caught between worlds. What did you mean by that?" There was a pause on the other end of the line. Dr. Martinez was in her 60s, a pediatrician who had built her practice around serving families that other clinics often overlooked: immigrants, single parents, kids with complex needs that required patience and creativity to address. "I saw someone who had learned to translate pain into something useful," she said carefully. "Someone who had turned their own experience of being unseen into a superpower for helping others feel heard. Was I wrong?" "No, you weren't wrong. I'm having a hard day." "Would you like to talk about it?" Maya almost said yes. Dr. Martinez had become something like a mentor over the past year, someone who saw Maya's potential even when Maya couldn't see it herself. But how could she explain the photos without sounding paranoid or attention-seeking? How could she make anyone understand the particular cruelty of being erased so thoroughly that your absence looked natural, inevitable? "Maybe another time. I should get back." "Maya," Dr. Martinez said gently, "whatever you're dealing with, remember that you matter. The work you do here matters. the families you help see you, even if she trailed off, as if she wanted to say more but wasn't sure she should. Even if what? Even if the people who should have seen you first didn't do their job. Maya hung up and sat in the park for a long time after that, watching the water flow past and thinking about visibility, about mattering, about what it meant to exist in the world when the people who created you had decided to pretend you never happened. A family of ducks paddled by in the creek. 2 parents and 3 ducklings following in a neat line. The smallest duckling struggled to keep up, but every time it fell behind, one of the parents would circle back, creating gentle ripples that helped carry their baby forward. That's what families were supposed to do, Maya thought. Make sure everyone kept up. Make sure no one got left behind. But as she walked back to the clinic for her afternoon appointments, Maya carried the heavy knowledge that some families made different choices. Some families decided that love was conditional, that belonging had to be earned and could be revoked, that some stories were worth preserving and others were worth erasing entirely. The afternoon flew by in a blur of patient consultations and insurance calls and treatment plan updates. Maya threw herself into the work with more intensity than usual, as if helping other people's children could somehow heal the abandoned child inside herself. She stayed late organizing supply closets and updating patient files, anything to avoid going home to her empty apartment where her father's perfectly curated Facebook page was just a click away. By the time she finally locked up the clinic, the sun was setting and the October air had turned crisp. Maya walked home slowly, dreading the silence that would greet her, the space where she would have to sit with the full weight of what had happened. As she climbed the stairs to her 4th-floor apartment, she could hear the sounds of other people's lives through thin walls. Families eating dinner together, children laughing at cartoons, couples discussing their days. Normal sounds from normal families who probably took for granted that they would all show up in each other's photos, that their shared history would remain intact, that love once given couldn't simply be photoshopped away. Maya unlocked her door and stepped into the quiet that had become both her refuge and her prison, carrying with her the day's small victories and the growing certainty that her family's love had never been as unconditional as she desperately wanted to believe. The second wave hit on Thursday morning. Maya was reviewing patient charts at her desk when Amy rushed over, phone in hand, her face pale with indignation. "Maya, you need to see this. I was looking up Dr. Martinez for something work-related, and I accidentally clicked on the wrong Dr. Martinez in the search results. Look at this." Amy thrust her phone forward, displaying a 5-star Google review for Chen Family Dental Practice. The review was dated 3 days ago, written by someone named Patricia M. "Dr. Chen is amazing. Such a caring family man. He always talks about his son and wife with such love. You can tell he's raised his boy right. Saw a photo in his office of them at some lake, and they look like such a close, happy family. It's refreshing to see a successful doctor who prioritizes family values. Highly recommend." Maya's vision blurred. Her hands trembled as she read the review again, processing the implications. Her father wasn't just erasing her from social media, he was actively promoting the narrative of his perfect 2-child family to his patients, his community, his professional network. The Lake Tahoe photo that had started this nightmare was apparently displayed in his office, her absence presented as the natural state of the Chen family. "Maya?" Amy's voice seemed to come from underwater. "Who is Dr. Martinez, and why do you look like you've seen a ghost?" Before Maya could answer, her phone rang. Jessica again. "Don't hang up," Jessica said immediately. "I've been doing some research, and Maya, this is bigger than we thought. I called my cousin Emma. You remember her. She went to Westfield High with David. She said she saw your dad at a medical conference last month, and he was showing people photos of his family. She specifically remembers him talking about his son and wife, how proud he was of David's college achievements. She said it was weird because she remembered you, but when she looked at the photos he was showing around, you weren't in any of them." Maya sank into her chair, her free hand gripping the edge of her desk.
Emma remembered me? Of course she remembered you. Maya, you were valedictorian. You won that state poetry contest. You organized the blood drive that saved 3 lives. People don't just forget someone like you. Jessica's voice was fierce with loyalty. Your father is rewriting history, but he can't change everyone's memories.
But apparently he could change enough of them. Over the next few hours, as word spread through Maya's small circle of remaining high school connections, a disturbing pattern emerged. David's social media showed a consistent narrative going back months. Family dinners for 3, holiday celebrations without Maya, casual mentions of being an only child who was so grateful for his parents' undivided attention. Their mother's accounts were more subtle but equally devastating. Linda Chen had always been less active on social media, but her recent post showed a similar revision. Mother's Day photos from this past year featured just her and David. Her anniversary post about 28 years of marriage blessed with our wonderful son had garnered dozens of congratulatory comments from friends and colleagues. Maya spent her lunch break in the clinic's supply closet, surrounded by boxes of bandages and medical forms, reading through years of her family's digital presence like an archaeologist discovering how completely a civilization could disappear. The erasure wasn't sudden or sloppy. It was methodical, careful, designed to make her absence look like it had always been the natural order of things. The most painful discovery came when she found her mother's Pinterest board titled My Son. Hundreds of pins about parenting advice, college prep tips, recipes for a growing teenage boy. The board had been created 3 years ago and updated regularly. There was no corresponding board for Maya, no trace of the 22 years Linda had spent as the mother of a daughter. Maya was so absorbed in her investigation that she almost missed her 2 p.m. appointment with the Zhang family. Mrs. Zhang was bringing in her 5-year-old daughter, Lily, for a follow-up after a recent autism diagnosis. Maya had been working with them for weeks, helping them navigate the overwhelming world of therapy options and educational advocacy. "Miss Maya!" Lily called out as soon as she saw her, running across the waiting room with her arms outstretched. The little girl crashed into Maya's legs, wrapping her arms around Maya's knees in an enthusiastic hug. "Hi, sweetheart," Maya said, her voice catching slightly. She knelt down to Lily's level, fighting back tears at the uncomplicated affection in the child's greeting. "I made you a picture," Lily announced, pulling a wrinkled piece of paper from her backpack. "It's you helping Mama not cry." The drawing showed 2 stick figures with black hair, one tall, one short, holding hands under a rainbow. The attention to detail was remarkable for a 5-year-old. Maya's figure was wearing her characteristic cardigan, and Lily had somehow captured her smile with just a curved line. "This is beautiful, Lily. Thank you so much." Maya carefully folded the drawing and slipped it into her pocket, a small anchor of reality in a day that felt increasingly surreal. Mrs. Zhang approached more cautiously, her English still hesitant but improving with each visit. "She talks about you all the time at home," she said softly. "You are first person who make us feel like we are good parents, even when everything feels scary and new." Maya spent the next hour with the Zhang family, helping them understand Lily's new therapy schedule and connecting them with a support group for other parents navigating autism diagnoses. But all the while, Lily's drawing crinkled softly in her pocket, a reminder that some people saw her clearly, valued her presence, would notice if she disappeared. The contrast with her own family's erasure felt like whiplash. After the Zhangs left, Maya found herself Googling digital erasure and family estrangement and Photoshop harassment, trying to find some framework for what was happening to her. The search results were frustratingly vague. Articles about cyberbullying focused mainly on strangers, legal advice about image manipulation dealt primarily with commercial uses, and family therapy resources assumed that all parties wanted reconciliation. The comments on the video were already pouring in. David's former classmates expressing how moved they were by his words, family friends praising Dr. Chen for raising such an articulate and grateful son, colleagues admiring the beautiful family values on display. Maya clicked through to David's Instagram and found he'd posted the same video there, along with a series of photos from graduation day. In the original shots, Maya had been visible in several, hugging David after the ceremony, standing with the family for formal portraits, laughing at something their grandfather had said during the reception. In David's posted versions, she was gone from every single image. The family portraits were cropped to show 3 people instead of 4. The candid shots were carefully framed to exclude her entirely. Even the reception photos had been edited to remove her from group shots with extended family. But the cruelest touch was in the caption. Graduation day was perfect. Just me and my parents celebrating together. So grateful for their love and support as I start this new chapter. Maya's phone rang at 6:47 a.m. on Saturday morning, jarring her awake from the first decent sleep she had all week. The caller ID showed her work number, which was strange for a weekend. "Maya, I'm so sorry to call you at home." Dr. Martinez's voice was tight with concern. "We need to talk. Can you come in this morning?" 20 minutes later, Maya sat in Dr. Martinez's office, still in her pajamas and sneakers, clutching a travel mug of coffee like a lifeline. Dr. Martinez looked uncomfortable, which was unusual for someone who dealt with difficult conversations daily. "Maya, I received a very strange phone call yesterday evening from a Dr. Richard Chen." Maya's coffee mug slipped, nearly falling from her numb fingers. "My father called you?" "He said he was concerned about someone impersonating his family member to gain employment in healthcare. He claimed that someone had been using his deceased daughter's identity for fraudulent purposes." Dr. Martinez's voice was carefully controlled, but Maya could hear the anger underneath. "He wanted to warn me that this person might try to establish a relationship with our clinic." The room seemed to tilt sideways. "Deceased?" "Maya, I need you to tell me what's really going on." So, Maya told her everything. About the edited photos, the rewritten speeches, the systematic erasure from family history. About the professional-level manipulation that had removed her from years of documented family memories. About David's Instagram posts and her aunt's cruel comments, and the growing realization that this wasn't just estrangement. It was something much more calculated and devastating. Dr. Martinez listened without interruption, her expression growing darker with each revelation. When Maya finished, there was a long silence. "Maya, this is abuse. Sophisticated, premeditated, psychological abuse." Dr. Martinez leaned forward, her hands clasped tightly. "Your father didn't just call to warn me about an imposter. He was trying to sabotage your employment, your professional relationships, your ability to build a life independent of his control." "But I can't prove any of it," Maya said weakly. "It's just family photos. It's his right to edit them however he wants." "No," Dr. Martinez's voice was firm. "Calling your workplace to claim you're using a dead person's identity crosses every line. That's not family drama. That's targeted harassment designed to destroy your livelihood." Maya felt something crack open in her chest, some tight knot of self-doubt that had been strangling her for days. "You believe me?" "Of course I believe you. Maya, I've watched you work with families for over a year. I've seen how you advocate for children, how you support parents through impossible situations, how you translate not just language, but empathy and understanding. The person who does that work doesn't emerge from a loving, supportive family that suddenly decides to erase her. That person emerges from trauma, from understanding what it feels like to be silenced and dismissed and made to feel invisible." Dr. Martinez stood up and walked to her bookshelf, pulling out a thick folder. "I want to show you something. These are letters from families you've worked with, testimonials I've collected over the past year." She spread the papers across her desk. Maya leaned forward, recognizing her handwriting on appointment cards and her signature on treatment plans, But there were dozens of notes she'd never seen before. A handwritten card from Mrs. Zong. Maya helped us understand that our daughter's autism wasn't our fault, wasn't something to be ashamed of. She saved our family. A typed letter from the Henderson family. Maya was the first person who listened to our concerns about Jake's development without making us feel like overprotective parents. She connected us with resources that changed his life. A crayon drawing from 8-year-old Sofia Rodriguez showing Maya holding her hand with the caption, "Miss Maya helps mamas not cry." Page after page of gratitude, recognition, proof that Maya's work mattered, that her presence in the world made a difference. Family she'd forgotten about, small interactions that had seemed routine to her, but had been transformative for others. "This is who you are," Dr. Martinez said softly, "not whatever narrative your family is trying to create. You exist in the lives you've touched, the families you've helped, the children who feel safer because of your advocacy." Maya wiped tears from her cheeks, overwhelmed by the tangible evidence of her impact. "I never knew they wrote these. Because you don't do this work for recognition, you do it because you understand what it feels like to need an advocate and not have one." Dr. Martinez sat back down, her expression serious. "Maya, I need to ask you something difficult. Do you think your father's call was just about sabotaging your job, or was it a warning that he's planning to escalate further?" Before Maya could answer, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is David. We need to talk. Meet me at Riverside Park at 2 p.m. Come alone." Maya showed the message to Dr. Martinez, whose frown deepened. "I don't like this. It feels like a setup." "I have to go," Maya said. "I need to understand what they're thinking, what they want." "Then you don't go alone. I'm coming with you." At 1:45 p.m., Maya and Dr. Martinez sat on a bench in Riverside Park, watching the entrance for any sign of David. Maya's hands were shaking despite the warm afternoon sun. She hadn't seen her brother in 2 years, hadn't spoken to him since the night she'd left home for good. David appeared at exactly 2 p.m., walking slowly across the grass with his hands in his pockets. At 21, he'd grown taller, his shoulders broader, but his face still held the boyish features Maya remembered. He looked nervous, constantly glancing around as if checking to make sure they weren't being watched. He stopped about 10 feet away, his eyes fixed on Maya with an expression she couldn't read. "You brought someone." "Dr. Martinez is my supervisor. She knows everything." "Maya, what do you want?" "I want you to stop." His words came out in a rush. "Stop monitoring our social media. Stop having your friends comment on our posts. Stop existing in places where we might run into you."
Stop existing? Maya stood up, anger flaring. "David, you literally edited me out of your graduation speech. You've erased me from every family photo, every memory, every trace of 22 years of shared history. And you want me to stop existing?" "You left." David's voice cracked, and for a moment he sounded like the little boy Maya remembered. "You walked out on us, Maya. You chose to leave." "I left because Dad made it impossible to stay, because his love came with conditions I couldn't meet anymore, because I was tired of being the family translator, the family mediator, the family scapegoat." "That's not how it happened." "Then how did it happen, David? Tell me your version." David looked away, his jaw clenched. "You became difficult. You stopped appreciating what Dad provided for us, stopped respecting his authority. You turned everything into a fight. I asked questions. I challenged ideas that didn't make sense. I refused to pretend that verbal abuse was normal family communication. He never abused you." "David." Maya's voice was gentle now, heartbroken. "He screamed at me for hours when I got a B+ in calculus because it wasn't perfect. He threw away my acceptance letter to the psychology program because he wanted me to go to medical school. He called me ungrateful and selfish and said I was a disappointment to the family name every time I disagreed with him about anything. He was preparing you for the real world. He had high standards because he wanted the best for you."
Maya stared at her brother, seeing the careful programming in his responses. What did he tell you about why I left? That you got involved with bad influences in college? That you started using drugs and sleeping around and disrespecting everything our family stood for? That you chose a destructive lifestyle over family loyalty? David, none of that is true. You know me. You know I've never used drugs, never been promiscuous, never done anything that would justify cutting me out of your life completely. I know what Dad told me. And you believed him? Over your own memories of who I am? David's composure cracked slightly. It was easier to believe him. It hurt less than thinking about how much I missed you. The admission hung in the air between them, raw and honest. Maya felt her anger soften slightly, replaced by grief for the relationship they'd lost. David, I never wanted to leave you. I loved being your sister. I loved helping you with homework and teaching you to drive and listening to you talk about girls and plans for the future. But I couldn't stay in a house where love was conditional on perfect obedience. So you chose yourself over family. I chose sanity over dysfunction. There's a difference. Dr. Martinez spoke for the first time, her voice calm but firm. David, can I ask you something? When your father showed you the edited photos and videos, how did that make you feel? David shifted uncomfortably. I don't know what you mean. Maya showed me the graduation speech video. The editing is professional quality, seamless audio manipulation that would have cost thousands of dollars. When your father played that...
When he showed you photos with Maya digitally removed, did any part of you feel uncomfortable with rewriting history so completely? It wasn't rewriting history, it was correcting it, showing things the way they should have been, the way they should have been without your sister. David was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was barely audible. Yes. Maya felt the ground shift beneath her feet. This wasn't just about her father's need for control or her mother's complicity in the family dynamics. David genuinely believed that their family was better off without her, that her existence had been somehow wrong or damaging from the beginning. David, she said softly, what did I do to you that was so terrible? What did I do that made you think the family would be perfect without me? You made everything complicated. Before you left, Dad was always stressed, always angry about something you'd done or said or achieved wrong. After you left, the house was peaceful. He was proud of me, supportive of my choices. Mom was happier. Everything was just easier. So you think I was the problem? I think you were incompatible with our family's values. Dr. Martinez leaned forward. David, can you tell me what those values are? Respect for authority, academic excellence, family loyalty, putting the family's reputation before individual desires. And Maya violated those values. How? She questioned Dad's decisions. She got emotional when he criticized her. She chose a career path he didn't approve of. She prioritized her own happiness over family harmony. Maya listened to her brother list her supposed failures and realized how completely her father had rewritten the narrative. In David's version, Maya was the selfish daughter who had disrupted the family's peace with her unreasonable demands for autonomy and respect. Her achievements were minimized, her suffering was ignored, and her departure was framed as abandonment rather than escape. David, Maya said, do you remember the night I left? His expression tightened. You had a fight with Dad and decided to be dramatic about it. Do you remember what the fight was about? Some boyfriend he didn't approve of. Maya closed her eyes, the memory still sharp after 2 years. There was no boyfriend, David. The fight was about you. About me? You were 17, and you'd been accepted to 3 different colleges. Dad wanted you to go to the one with the best pre-med program, but you wanted to study engineering. You were afraid to tell him because you'd seen how he reacted when I chose psychology over medicine. David's face went pale. I don't remember that. You came to my room crying,
because you didn't want to disappoint him, but you also didn't want to spend 4 years studying something you hated. I told you you had the right to choose your own path, that Dad's approval shouldn't come at the cost of your happiness. Maya, stop. I went downstairs to talk to him, to suggest that maybe he should listen to what you actually wanted instead of imposing his vision of your future. He started screaming at me about undermining his authority, about poisoning you against the family, about being a destructive influence who needed to be removed before I corrupted you completely.
Stop! David's voice was desperate now. He said he wished I'd never been born, that you were the only child worth having, that I was a mistake he'd been paying for your entire life. And when I told him that was an awful thing to say to his daughter, he said I wasn't his daughter anymore. That I could leave and never come back, and he'd tell everyone I was dead to make the transition easier for the family. David was shaking now, his face white with shock. He didn't say that. He did, David. And the next morning, when I was packing my suitcases, you asked me why I was leaving. I told you it was because Dad had made it clear I wasn't welcome anymore. And you said, do you remember what you said? David shook his head, but Maya could see recognition in his eyes. You said maybe it was for the best, that things would be calmer without me there to cause problems. The silence that followed was deafening. David stared at Maya with horror dawning in his expression, as if pieces of suppressed memory were slowly clicking into place. I was 17, he whispered. I was scared and confused, and I just wanted the fighting to stop. I know. And I don't blame you for choosing the path of least resistance. But David, you were there. You witnessed what really happened. How did you let Dad convince you that I was the villain in this story? Dr. Martinez spoke gently. David, what your family did is called gaslighting. It's a form of psychological manipulation where the truth is systematically distorted until the victim begins to question their own memory and perception of reality. It sounds like you've been subjected to this as well. David looked between Maya and Dr. Martinez, his composure completely shattered now. But the photos, the videos, Dad said you asked him to edit them. He said you didn't want to be associated with our family anymore, that removing you was what you wanted. David, I had no idea about any of it until 3 days ago when Jessica sent me a link to your Lake Tahoe post. I've been watching my entire history with your family disappear in real time. Oh, God. David sank onto a nearby bench, his head in his hands. Oh God, Maya, what have we done? Maya sat down beside him, close enough to touch, but not quite ready to bridge that gap. We? I helped him with some of the photos. He said you'd requested it, that you wanted a clean break. I helped him figure out which posts to edit, which memories to erase. David's voice broke completely. I helped you delete you. For several minutes, they sat in silence while David cried and Maya processed the revelation that her brother hadn't just been a passive victim of their father's manipulation, he'd been an active participant in her erasure. Why? Maya asked finally. Even if you believed his story about me requesting it, why did it seem reasonable to help him erase 22 years of shared history? David wiped his eyes and looked at her with devastated honesty. Because it hurt less than missing you. Because every photo with you in it reminded me that I'd chosen them over you, and I couldn't live with that guilt. Because erasing you was easier than admitting that maybe you were right to leave. Dr. Martinez leaned forward. David, what happened if you told your parents you wanted Maya back in your life? They'd disown me too. His answer was immediate and certain. Dad has made it clear that choosing Maya means choosing to be cut off from everything. Family support, college tuition, inheritance, family business connections. It's not just about losing his approval, it's about losing my entire future.
Maya felt a surge of protective anger for her brother, recognizing the same impossible choice she'd faced 2 years ago. David, you're 21 years old. You can build your own future. With what? I've never had a job, never lived on my own, never made a decision without Dad's approval. You were always the strong one, Maya. I don't know how to be independent like you. Because you weren't forced to learn. Because they kept you dependent on purpose. Maya turned to face him fully. David, what do you want? Not what Dad wants for you, not what's easiest or safest. What do you actually want? David was quiet for a long time, staring at the creek that ran through the park. I want my sister back, he said finally. I want to stop pretending you never existed. I want to tell people about the amazing woman who taught me how to ride a bike and helped me with my homework and stood up for me when Dad's expectations got too intense. What's stopping you? I'm scared, he admitted. I'm scared of losing everything else. I'm scared that Dad will follow through on his threats. I'm scared that I'm too weak to choose the right thing over the easy thing. Dr. Martinez pulled out her business card and handed it to David. You don't have to make this choice alone, and you don't have to make it today. But David, living a lie, even a comfortable lie, will eat away at you over time. The guilt you feel about helping to erase Maya is only going to get worse. David took the card, studying it carefully. You think I need therapy? I think you've been psychologically manipulated by someone who is supposed to protect you. I think you've been forced to choose between family loyalty and personal integrity. And I think you deserve support as you figure out how to move forward. Maya reached out and touched her brother's hand for the first time in 2 years. David, whatever you decide, I want you to know that I forgive you. I understand the position Dad put you in. I understand why you made the choices you made. How can you forgive me? I helped him erase you from our family history. Because you're still my little brother. Because I love you regardless of what you've done. Because I remember who you were before Dad turned us against each other. Maya squeezed his hand. And because I believe you can still choose to be that person again. David looked up at her with tears in his eyes. What if it's too late? What if I've been complicit in this for so long that there's no way back? It's never too late to tell the truth. It's never too late to stand up for what's right. But David, you need to understand that choosing to have a relationship with Maya might mean losing your relationship with your parents. Are you prepared for that possibility? David was quiet for a long moment. Then he pulled out his phone and opened Instagram. I want to show you something. He scrolled to a post from 3 months ago, a family dinner photo that Maya recognized from the original. In the posted version, she'd been cropped out, but now David zoomed in on the edge of the frame where part of her hand was still visible. I tried to edit this one myself, but I couldn't do it completely. I kept leaving little traces of you because some part of me couldn't bear to make you disappear entirely. He showed her another photo where the shadow of her head was still visible on the wall behind the family. There are pieces of you in all of them, Maya. I couldn't make myself erase you completely. Maya stared at the photos, seeing for the first time the small rebellions David had built into his compliance with his father's demands. Shadows, reflections, partial hands and feet, tiny proof that she had existed, that she had been there, that even while participating in her erasure, David hadn't been able to fully let her go. These photos are still online? Maya asked. All of them. Every single one has some trace of you if you know where to look. Dr. Martinez leaned in to examine the images. David, do you realize what this means? You've created evidence that the editing was deliberate, that Maya was systematically removed from family photos. This isn't just about hurt feelings anymore. This is documented proof of coordinated harassment and manipulation. Maya felt something shift inside her chest, a loosening of the despair that had gripped her for days. She wasn't completely erased after all. David's unconscious resistance to their father's demands had preserved proof of her existence, tiny breadcrumbs that led back to the truth. What happens now? David asked. Maya looked at her brother, then at Dr. Martinez, then at the creek flowing steadily through the park. Now, we decide what story we want to tell about the Chen family. And we decide whether we're brave enough to tell the truth. Maya Chen's world shattered on an ordinary Tuesday morning when she stumbled upon her father's Facebook post celebrating her brother David's college graduation. In the photo, 3 people stood together, her parents and David, but Maya knew with chilling certainty that there should have been 4. She had been there.
She remembered standing between David and their mother, remembered the weight of the graduation cap in her hands, remembered the awkward family smile they'd all forced for the camera. But in this version of history, Maya had been completely erased. What followed was a devastating investigation that revealed the true scope of her family's betrayal. Using reverse image searches and digital forensics, Maya discovered that her father, Richard Chen, had hired professional photo editors to systematically remove her from years of family documentation. Wedding photos, holiday celebrations, birthday parties, family vacations. Every shared memory had been meticulously altered to create a narrative where Maya had never existed. The erasure wasn't limited to photographs. Her father had employed audio engineers to edit her voice out of David's graduation speech, where her brother had originally thanked my parents and my sister Maya for their support. Professional video editors had removed her from family movies, carefully reconstructing backgrounds and adjusting lighting to eliminate any trace of her presence. Even childhood videos had been altered. Maya's laughter deleted from birthday parties, her figure cropped out of Christmas mornings, her voice removed from family sing-alongs. This wasn't a moment of anger or impulse. This was a calculated, expensive, systematic campaign to rewrite family history, and it had been going on for 2 years without Maya's knowledge. To understand how such a cruel betrayal was possible, we must examine the Chen family's dynamics that led to this moment. Maya had grown up in what appeared to be a perfect Asian American family: successful parents, high-achieving children, and a carefully curated image of prosperity and harmony. But beneath the surface, their household was governed by Richard Chen's authoritarian control and conditional love. Richard's approval came with strict terms: academic excellence, professional success, and most importantly, absolute compliance with his vision of family reputation. Children were expected to be extensions of their parents' ambitions, not independent individuals with their own dreams and desires. Love was transactional. You earned affection through achievement and lost it through disobedience. Maya's erasure began when she chose to leave home at 18, not for college or career opportunities, but to escape the psychological abuse that had defined her childhood. Unlike David, who had learned to navigate their father's expectations through careful performance,
Strategic compliance, Maya had reached a breaking point where she could no longer sacrifice her authentic self for family harmony. Her departure triggered Richard's rage, not because he missed his daughter, but because her absence created cracks in the perfect family image he had spent decades constructing. Rather than examining his own behavior or questioning why his daughter felt the need to escape, Richard chose to eliminate the problem by eliminating Maya herself. With the help of his wife Linda, who was too financially dependent and psychologically conditioned to resist, Richard embarked on a campaign to convince the world that Maya had never been part of their family success story. They rewrote their narrative to feature only the family members who remained compliant and manageable. The scope of the Chen family's digital erasure campaign was breathtaking in its thoroughness and chilling in its implications. Richard had spent thousands of dollars hiring professional editors who specialized in family photo restoration and enhancement. These weren't amateur Photoshop jobs, they were sophisticated manipulations that required expertise in lighting, shadows, composition, and digital seamless integration. Every family photo from Maya's childhood and adolescence was systematically altered. Her figure was removed from group shots at family reunions, her face deleted from vacation pictures, her presence erased from milestone celebrations. The editors didn't simply crop her out, they reconstructed entire backgrounds, adjusted other family members' positions, and modified lighting to create images that looked completely natural and unedited. The audio manipulation was equally sophisticated. David's graduation speech, which had originally included heartfelt thanks to my parents and my sister Maya, was professionally edited to remove any reference to his sister. The editing was so seamless that even David himself began to doubt his original memories of what he had said that day. Social media became a battlefield where Maya's existence was systematically denied.
Her parents' Facebook profiles, Instagram accounts, and LinkedIn pages were scrubbed of any reference to having a daughter. Family holiday posts showed 3 happy people celebrating together with no indication that anyone was missing from the picture. Most insidiously, Richard spread carefully crafted lies to extended family members, telling them that Maya had become involved with drugs and had specifically requested to be removed from family photos due to shame about her behavior. This preemptive narrative ensured that relatives who might have questioned Maya's sudden disappearance from family documentation instead accepted her absence as her own choice. While her family was spending thousands of dollars to delete her from their history, Maya was building a meaningful life based on genuine relationships and authentic connections. Working as a pediatric advocate at a local hospital, she found purpose in helping vulnerable children navigate medical trauma and family crises. Her apartment became a sanctuary decorated with photos that told the true story of her relationships. Friends from college, colleagues from work, the elderly neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, who'd become like a grandmother to her. These images stood in contrast to her family's edited perfection, showing real moments of joy, struggle, growth, and connection. Maya's work at the hospital brought her into contact with families experiencing various forms of dysfunction that she began to recognize patterns of dysfunction that mirrored her own childhood experiences. She saw parents who loved their children conditionally, families who prioritized image over substance, and children who were being psychologically manipulated in ways that would leave lasting scars. Her relationship with her childhood friend, Jessica, provided a crucial anchor of stability and validation. Jessica had witnessed Maya's family dynamics firsthand during their teenage years and could confirm that Maya's memories of abuse and control were accurate, not distorted perceptions of normal family discipline.
But perhaps most importantly, Maya's work with the Martinez family, particularly 4-year-old Jake, who had selective mutism, taught her about the power of patient, unconditional support. Through months of gentle encouragement and consistent presence, Maya helped Jake find his voice, demonstrating to herself that healing was possible even after profound trauma. Maya's discovery of her digital erasure created an impossible choice: confront her family about their betrayal or continue living as if she didn't know what they had done. The psychological weight of knowing that people who were supposed to love her unconditionally had spent thousands of dollars to deny her existence was nearly unbearable. The confrontation came during an accidental encounter in Riverside Park, where Maya found herself face-to-face with David for the first time in 2 years. What should have been a joyful reunion between siblings became a devastating moment of truth as Maya forced David to acknowledge his participation in her erasure. David's initial response was denial and deflection. He had been so thoroughly indoctrinated into his father's version of events that he genuinely believed Maya had somehow brought the erasure upon herself. But when Maya presented him with evidence of the photo manipulation, showing him the unedited versions of images he thought he remembered clearly, David began to understand the scope of their father's lies. The conversation in the park lasted for hours, with Maya patiently walking David through the timeline of her disappearance from family documentation. She showed him professional analysis of the photo editing, played recordings of conversations where their father discussed the erasure campaign, and most importantly, helped David remember moments from their childhood that contradicted their father's narrative about Maya being a troubled, selfish daughter. Maya reminded David of how she had taught him to ride a bike when their parents were too busy with work, how she had helped him with math homework every night for 3 years when he struggled with undiagnosed dyslexia, how she had organized a blood drive at their high school that saved lives. She painted a picture of the sister he had actually grown up with, not the villain their father had created, but a caring, accomplished young woman who had been driven away by psychological abuse. David's awakening to the truth about their family's systematic cruelty sent him into a profound psychological crisis. For 2 years, he had been living with the cognitive dissonance of missing his sister while simultaneously participating in denying her existence. The weight of his complicity in Maya's erasure
combined with the recognition of how thoroughly his father had manipulated his perceptions, led David to seek intensive therapy with Dr. Torres. Through weeks of counseling, David began to understand the mechanisms of psychological manipulation that had governed their household. He recognized how their father had used fear, guilt, and financial control to maintain authority over family members. He saw how he had been conditioned to prioritize family image over family members' well-being, and how his silence had enabled abuse to continue. The decision to go public with the truth about Maya's erasure was both terrifying and liberating for David. He understood that challenging their father's narrative would likely result in being cut off from family support, but he also recognized that his silence was perpetuating cruelty against someone he genuinely loved. David's confession video, posted 3 weeks after his confrontation with Maya, was a masterclass in accountability and redemption. For 22 minutes, he walked viewers through the entire timeline of Maya's digital erasure, showing before and after photos, explaining the process of professional manipulation, and reading aloud from text messages where his father had instructed him on which posts to edit. But most importantly, David used the video to restore Maya's rightful place in their family history. He shared memories of Maya's kindness, intelligence, and strength. He talked about her academic achievements, her community service, her role in his own development as a person. He painted a picture of the sister he had actually grown up with, not the villain their father had created, but a caring, accomplished young woman who had been driven away by psychological abuse.
The video ended with David making a public plea for anyone who had photos or videos of Maya from their shared childhood to send them to him. "I want to rebuild the archive of my sister's life," he said directly to the camera. "I want to restore the history that we destroyed. And I want the world to know that Maya Chen exists, that she matters, and that she deserves better than a family who tried to pretend she never lived." The response to David's confession video was immediate and overwhelming. Within hours, it had been shared thousands of times across social media platforms. Maya's phone rang constantly with calls from friends, former classmates, teachers, and neighbors, people who had known her growing up and were shocked to learn about her family's systematic erasure. What followed was a digital avalanche of support and validation that helped restore years of deliberately destroyed history. Jessica arrived at Maya's apartment with printed photos spanning their entire adolescence. High school teachers sent academic achievement records and recommendation letters. Neighbors contributed pictures from block parties and holiday celebrations where Maya was clearly an integral part of the Chen family's social circle. Most surprisingly, Maya's extended family in Taiwan began reaching out with apologies and preserved memories. Her cousin Emily called sobbing, explaining that Richard had told them Maya was involved with drugs and had requested removal from family photos due to shame about her behavior. The extended family had boxes of photos from Maya's childhood visits to Taiwan, videos with their grandmother, documentation of a loving relationship that Richard's lies had temporarily poisoned, but not permanently destroyed. The restoration of Maya's archive became a community effort, with dozens of people contributing pieces of her life that her father had tried to erase. Birthday parties, school events, family gatherings, casual hangouts, and entire adolescence documented by friends who had never questioned Maya's importance in their shared history. Perhaps most meaningfully, the family Maya was currently helping, the Martinez family with 4-year-old Jake, reached out after seeing David's video. They realized that their Maya, the advocate who had helped their son find his voice, was the same person whose family had tried to erase her from existence. The irony was profound. While Maya's biological family was denying her impact and worth, she was simultaneously transforming the lives of strangers who recognized her value immediately. Linda Chen's response to David's public confession revealed the complex dynamics of psychological and financial abuse that enabled Richard's campaign against Maya.
When she finally called Maya 2 weeks after the video went live, Linda's voice was barely above a whisper, weighted with years of suppressed guilt and fear. Linda's explanation of her complicity was heartbreaking in its honesty about economic vulnerability and learned helplessness. At 53, she hadn't worked outside the home in 25 years. Richard controlled all bank accounts, the house, the car, every aspect of their financial life. Linda had participated in Maya's erasure not out of malice, but out of terror that challenging Richard would result in her own abandonment and destitution. I told myself that you were strong enough to survive on your own, that David needed me more because he was younger and more fragile, Linda confessed. I convinced myself that letting your father erase you was better than fighting him and potentially losing both of my children. But Linda's explanation, while understandable, couldn't excuse the devastating impact of her choices. Maya pointed out the painful truth. You did lose both of us, Mom. You lost me when you participated in my erasure, and you're going to lose David now that he's choosing to tell the truth. The conversation revealed that Richard's control extended far beyond photo editing. Linda described financial isolation, monitoring of her communications, and threats of abandonment if she didn't comply with his vision of family loyalty. Maya began to understand that her mother had been as much a victim of Richard's manipulation as she and David had been, though Linda's victimization had taken a different form.
However, Maya also recognized that explanation didn't equal excuse. Her mother's fear was real and understandable, but it had enabled years of psychological abuse that had nearly destroyed Maya's sense of self-worth. Forgiveness, Maya realized, would have to be a process rather than a moment, something that unfolded over time as people demonstrated their commitment to change. Maya's decision to speak publicly about her experience of digital erasure transformed her personal trauma into professional expertise and social advocacy. When a local news station contacted her about appearing in a segment on modern forms of psychological abuse, Maya recognized an opportunity to help other people name and understand what was happening to them. The news segment featured Maya's story alongside those of 3 other adults who had been digitally erased by their families: a young man whose parents removed him from photos after he came out as gay, a woman whose in-laws edited her out of wedding and grandchildren photos after her divorce, and a teenager whose father deleted her from his social media after she reported his physical abuse. The common thread wasn't just the digital manipulation, it was the way families had weaponized technology to rewrite history, to create perfect narratives that excluded inconvenient truths or challenging relationships. The segment sparked national conversations about consent and image manipulation, about the psychological impact of digital erasure, and about the way social media could be used as tools of control and punishment. Dr. Torres appeared as an expert commentator, explaining the psychological mechanisms behind family scapegoating and the particular cruelty of erasure as punishment. When families systematically remove someone from shared history, they're not just editing photos, they're attacking that person's fundamental sense of existence and belonging. It's a form of psychological warfare that can have devastating effects on mental health and self-worth. The response was overwhelming. Maya received hundreds of messages from people sharing their own experiences of family erasure, offering support, or simply expressing gratitude that someone had named and validated what they were experiencing. 6 months after discovering her digital erasure, Maya stood in the community room of the downtown library, addressing 37 people who had come to attend the first meeting of the digital erasure support group she had started with Dr. Torres' help. The attendees ranged in age from 16 to 72, representing every kind of family configuration and every form of digital manipulation imaginable. The group provided a space for people to share their stories, validate each other's experiences, and develop strategies for healing. The thing about erasure, Maya told the group, is that it tries to convince you that you never mattered in the first place, that your absence improves the picture, literally and figuratively. But we're here tonight because we know that's not true. We matter, our stories matter, and no amount of photo editing can change the impact we've had on the world. The support group became a model that was replicated in cities across the country, providing resources for people dealing with family-based digital harassment and systematic denial of their existence and worth. Maya's personal experience became the foundation for groundbreaking academic research on digital trauma and family dysfunction. She pursued advanced degrees in family psychology, specializing in technological abuse and digital manipulation within family systems. Her doctoral dissertation tracked the long-term outcomes for survivors of family digital erasure across a 5-year period, providing hopeful evidence that healing was possible with appropriate support and intervention.
Her research contributed to policy changes at major social media platforms, requiring consent for photo tagging and providing clearer reporting mechanisms for family-based harassment. Several states passed legislation specifically addressing digital manipulation as a form of domestic abuse, creating legal recourse for people whose families weaponized technology against them. Perhaps most importantly, Maya's work helped establish vocabulary for experiences that had previously been nameless. Terms like digital erasure, family photo manipulation abuse, and technological scapegoating became part of the clinical lexicon, giving therapists and patients common language for discussing these forms of harm. Maya's book, Erased But Not Forgotten, A Family's Digital Betrayal and the Journey Back to Wholeness, became a bestseller, and she was invited to speak at universities, conferences, and policy forums around the world. Her presentation to the United Nations Human Rights Council addressed digital rights and family autonomy as international human rights issues. At 57, Maya established the Visible Foundation, a permanent organization dedicated to supporting young people dealing with family rejection regardless of the reason. The foundation provided scholarship programs for kids cut off from family financial support, legal advocacy for people facing family-based digital harassment, and research into healthy family communication and conflict resolution. The foundation's mission statement read, "To every person who has been digitally erased, systematically ignored, or deliberately forgotten by people who were supposed to love you unconditionally, you exist. Your story matters. Your absence from their narrative doesn't diminish your presence in the world." Maya's work had evolved far beyond her personal experience to encompass global patterns of digital manipulation and control within family systems. Her research documented systematic image manipulation as a form of family control across 34 countries, in contexts ranging from honor-based violence to religious extremism to simple intergenerational conflict over lifestyle choices. The most meaningful redemption in Maya's story came through her relationship with David, who had transformed from a complicit participant in her erasure into her strongest advocate and closest family member. David legally changed his last name, refusing to carry their father's name if it came with expectations of participating in cruelty. He paid his own way through college, studying engineering instead of the business major their father had demanded. "I'm learning how to be independent, how to make my own choices. I'm learning how to be the brother you deserve. Thank you for not giving up on me, even when I had given up on myself." David married Rachel, an environmental lawyer, and they named their daughter Emma after Maya's cousin in Taiwan. Emma grew up knowing the true story of her family's history, understanding that love should be freely given rather than conditionally earned. The relationship with their mother remained more complicated. Linda eventually left Richard and entered intensive therapy, beginning the slow process of learning independence in her 60s. She reached out to Maya during her final illness, seeking not forgiveness, but acknowledgement of the harm she had caused through her complicity. Maya's response to Linda was measured but compassionate. Forgiveness doesn't have to be immediate or complete. It can be a process, something that unfolds over time as people demonstrate their commitment to change. 20 years after her digital erasure, Maya had transformed her personal trauma into a global movement for family healing and digital rights. Her father's attempt to make her invisible had instead made her internationally visible as an advocate and expert.
Her cruel campaign to erase her had become the foundation for the most meaningful work of her life.
Maya's chosen family included David and his children, her mentor, Dr. Torres, her lifelong friend, Jessica, elderly Mrs. Patterson, who had become like a grandmother, and countless colleagues and friends who valued her for who she was rather than who they needed her to be. The house where Maya lived in Portland was filled with photos that told the true story of chosen family and unconditional love. Images that could never be edited or erased because they were based on genuine connection rather than obligatory performance. Maya Chen's story is ultimately about the difference between being loved conditionally and being loved fully, between performing for approval and living authentically, between being erased and choosing to become visible again. Her family's systematic betrayal, while devastating, freed her to build relationships based on mutual respect and genuine care rather than fear and obligation. The cruel irony of digital erasure is that it often makes its victims more visible rather than less. By attempting to deny Maya's existence, her father inadvertently created the conditions for her to become a powerful voice for others experiencing similar abuse. Her erasure became her platform. Her silencing became her song. Maya's journey from erased daughter to international advocate demonstrates the remarkable resilience of human spirit and the transformative power of turning personal pain into universal healing. Her story reminds us that family is not just about shared DNA or legal documents, but about people who see us clearly, support our growth, and celebrate our authentic selves. Most importantly, Maya's story proves that no amount of photo editing can change the fundamental truth of our existence and worth. We cannot be erased from the lives we have touched, the love we have given, the changes we have created in the world. Our stories matter, our voices deserve to be heard, and our right to exist authentically cannot be deleted by anyone else's inability to accept us fully. Subscribe to our channel for more stories of resilience, recovery, and the unbreakable human spirit. Hit that notification bell to never miss a story of transformation, and remember, you are visible, you matter, and your story deserves to be told. Join our community of survivors and supporters who believe that healing is possible, that love should be unconditional, and that no one has the right to erase your existence from the world.